Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Martin Alperin. I'm a lawyer from San Francisco with a particular interest in Homeland Security laws. On 9/11, I was a lawyer working for the Virgin Islands government on St. Thomas and a volunteer first responder for St. John Rescue and St. John Ham Radio on St. John. I then had the incredible opportunity to go to graduate school and study Homeland Security. I was reading Homeland Security laws. I saw the policy these laws intended to create, and as a first responder, I felt the street level reach of these laws. As COVID-19 began to unfold, I was comfortable knowing that America had been planning for pandemics since 2002. I was very wrong. There were existing federal laws that mandated we have PPE, stockpiles, messaging, aware of supply chain problems, etc. My talk will be in two parts. Part two is definitely more interesting, at least to me, but in order for a full understanding, it requires part one. Part one is essentially a list of Homeland Security laws related to pandemics between 2002 and 2018. And specifically, I'll concentrate in part two on the 2018 pandemic law. The entire talk will be about 20 minutes, and there'll be hopefully room for questions. America's Homeland Security laws. After 9/11, America drafted laws to protect us, Homeland Security laws. There are dozens of them. They create obligations on the federal government and federal agencies to help the private sector and state and local governments. They're about preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery, and are there 100% to help us. Right off the bat, I'd like to distinguish Homeland Security law from public health law. Homeland Security law says we shall have masks. Public health law says you shall wear them. Homeland Security needs an image makeover. Images of border protection is not helping Homeland Security. It is much more than border protection. The military, diplomats, intelligence agencies, ICE, Border Patrol, and law enforcement are absolutely necessary to Homeland Security, but they're not all that is necessary. I'm speaking about the dozens of federal Homeland Security laws that deal with things like agriculture and food production, energy production and transmission, critical infrastructure protection, transportation including pipelines, and pandemics. Many of these laws, if not most of them, have dual-use capability. For example, the bandage that would be used after a terrorist bombing is the same bandage that would be used after a tornado. So what are Homeland Security laws? They're a mix of congressional statutes and executive orders. They're intertwined and interrelated. They build upon each other. They include policy documents, agency documents, military doctrine, documents that inform or provide analysis of other laws, commissions, and things that are prepared because of or pursuant to a law. Right off the bat, I'm going to give you two things that aren't any of those. The National Agricultural Biosecurity Center of Kansas State University. It's pre-9/11. It deals with biological threats and agricultural threats. And also the Worldwide Threat Assessment of the U.S. Intelligence Community. This is an intelligence agency report, but it's important for Homeland Security for things like this. Under the topic of infectious diseases, it says, among the foremost health security threats are infectious diseases. And also notes that climate change can also lead to changes in the distribution of vectors for diseases. So these are not really laws, but they certainly inform laws. What role do these play? These laws enable the development of a rich and robust legal, administrative, and agency framework for both policy and street-level reach. Now, nothing happens in Homeland Security that isn't authorized by law. DHS was established by law. In the Homeland Security Act of 2002, Section 101 said establishment. There is established a Department of Homeland Security as an executive department of the United States. Done. Passed by both houses of Congress and signed by the President. That established DHS. Between 2002 and 2020, there were 18 laws related to pandemics. Again, these laws are the foundation of Homeland Security. Nothing can happen without it being authorized by law. And there's not one law, just like there isn't one agency that defines Homeland Security. It is an all-of-government effort. The first law on this list would be the Patriot Act, Section 817, just expanded technical amendment to the Biological Weapons Statute. Next in line is the Public Health, Security, and Bioterrorism Preparedness and Response Act of 2002. I'm going to refer to this one several times today because it forms the earliest mention of many things, and this is a congressionally enacted statute, and I'll refer to it again. It acknowledges this is an act to improve the ability of the United States to prevent, prepare for, and respond to bioterrorism and other public health emergencies. It talks about increasing public health surveillance. It discusses the Strategic National Stockpile. The Homeland Security Act of 2002 has large portions related to pandemics. The National Strategy for the for the physical protection of critical infrastructure and key assets also has large portions devoted to pandemics. In Executive Order from April 2003, there was a revised list of quarantinable communicable diseases, and again, this was amended in 2014. HSPD 10. HSPD stands for Homeland Security Presidential Directive. This was the name initially given to that bunch of executive orders devoted to Homeland Security. HSPD 10 was one of them. It was called Biodefense for the 21st Century from President Bush. It recognized bioterror attacks could mimic naturally occurring disease. And disease outbreaks, whether natural or deliberate, respect no geographic or political borders. Both of those are correct. And this 2004 pandemic plan from Bush was superseded and replaced by the 2018 National Strategy. Next is Project BioShield Act of 2004, which from the title is about 100% related to pandemics. The Post-Katrina Emergency Management Reform Act of 2006 established in FEMA a chief medical officer with the ability in and knowledge of medicine and public health. The Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Act of 2006. Among other things, it said we should take consideration in the strategic national stockpile, taking into account at-risk populations. Now, this is an advancement because way back in the beginning, we were lucky to have the national stockpile, and by 2006, we're refining it to take into consideration at-risk populations. Section 302 of this act talked about enhancing medical surge capacity. Section 303 was establishing and maintaining a medical reserve corps for volunteers. HSPD 18 was medical countermeasures against weapons of mass destruction for 2007. And excuse me for not mentioning it earlier, but if there were weapons of mass destruction and was a bioterrorism, it would cause a pandemic. So preparation for pandemic is the same as preparation for bioterrorism. Another HSPD, number 21 from 2007, says a naturally occurring pandemic could cause hundreds of thousands of casualties. HSPD 21 talked about countermeasures, stockpiling, distributions of vaccines, drugs, and therapeutics. In 2009, there was PPD 2. PPD stands for Presidential Policy Directive, and it is a new name given to HSPD. So now they're called PPDs. The 2018 National Strategy repealed and replaced the 2009 pandemic plan, which was from President Obama. In 2009, the Department of Defense established the DoD National Center for Medical Intelligence, which had existed earlier and was reestablished. The Pandemic and All Hazards Preparation Reauthorization Act of 2013, and this is from the table of contents. It talked about temporary reassignment of state and local personnel, hospital preparedness and medical surge capabilities, biosurveillance, and again the national stockpile. The National Health Security Strategy and Implementation Plan from 2019 to 2022 was again about health security and pandemics. This is one of my favorites here, the 2015 Public Health Emergency Medical Countermeasures Enterprise Strategy and Implementation Plan. Very long title. It is an interagency coordinating body led by HHS. Almost everything to do with pandemics is the responsibility of Health and Human Services. Now this PHEMCE was cooperated by the CDC, National Institute of Health, the Food and Drug Administration, Veterans Affairs, the Department of Defense, DHS, and Agriculture. It coordinated the development, acquisition, stockpiling, and use of medical products that are needed to effectively respond to a variety of high-consequence public health emergencies. Next and last in the list, we have the Trump administration had its National Biodefense Strategy from 2018. That's the Trump administration pandemic plan. And its accompanying National Security Presidential Memorandum 14, which was the Presidential Memorandum on Support for National Biodefense. And this is from 2018. And lastly on the list is the Biden administration September 21 Pandemic Plan.